And welcome back to We're the People. This is your host, Jason Preston. And today with a new host we have not had before, but someone that all of you are familiar with. She's inspired so many of us. And I have such a huge faith in the youth. We truly know that this generation of youth is going to change the world, and to have someone like River here who's been through and seen the most horrific things and come out the other end swinging and standing up and fighting. I'm proud of her, and so we're glad to have her. So River, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so hopefully you saw her show. If you didn't, go back and check it out. It's an incredible show, because we have been talking so much lately about the LDS Church of Satan, which hides within the church, obviously, but the thing that she experienced in her abuse was so much of the political aspect. And obviously, all you have to do is take a look at our politicians from Cox to Romney and know that there's something, going on there underneath the surface with their political system as well. You don't have one of the most politically corrupt states without something deep beneath, which is why we've been focusing on this, because earlier we were focusing on all the different branches of corruption in the state, election integrity, problems with the surveillance state and smart cities and all, China and all these things. And really, when we started learning about this topic of ritual abuse, that's when the light turned on, and we realized, this is not just left, right. This is not political corruption. The heart of everything we're fighting is this, and this is what all of it sits on. So her show really exposed that, so hopefully you saw that. So, yeah, glad to have you back.
So happy to be here.
Yeah, so today we have, this is a survivor we're bringing on. It's a fascinating story. We've actually spent quite a bit of time with her, getting to know her. She has so many, she's been on a war path. I don't say a war path, but she's an incredible warrior of light. She's been through the most, again, horrific things, but she has been someone who says, I'm not going to lay down and just go away, slip away quietly in the night. I'm going to stand and fight. And she has been relentlessly taking evidence and fighting this and trying to expose this and going to the police and going to all these different places to bring justice. And at every turn, every time she would bring evidence, whether it's the police or to the justice system, they turned her down. And so when she came to us and she had all these records, we're like, oh my gosh, we need your story to be told. And so she's, one of the interesting things about her is she's not only been abused through the LDS Church of Satan, but she's been involved in Masonic rituals. She's been involved, her story touches the polygamous groups. It touches the KKK, which is hard to believe in this day and age, and including being abused on a military base. So she has a fascinating story. I think I promise you will find this woman to be inspiring and powerful. And I believe she is one of these warriors of light that was sent, and I believe she's made a difference in our lives, and I believe she will make a difference in your life as well as you sit through this story. So, River, I'd like to have you. Would you mind introducing Michelle?
Yeah,
Nelson?
Absolutely. I have this list here of so many amazing accomplishments. But it looks like Michelle was born in Murray, Utah. She was raised in Bluffdale. She was the oldest of 9 children. She loves nature, her family, and has an extensive musical background. She served an LDS mission in Spain, and she has 4 kids, 6 grandchildren. For her work, it looks like she has had a diverse background, being a substitute teacher, home health CNA, holistic health therapist, licensed massage therapist, and she's also an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She has 35 years of background working on reporting and exposing satanic ritual abuse. Wow. She is an advocate for children and victims, a whistleblower, a warrior, and a co-founder with Raven Taylor of Warris Warriors, which stands for We Are Ritual Abuse Survivors. Extremely powerful. I'm very inspired by you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. And thank you both, and Alexia and everybody, for all that you're doing and for having me on, because this needs to be exposed, and I think it's time, like you said, and I just really appreciate all the work you've done, everything you're doing, so thank you.
Yeah, we're very honored to have you. And I think, again, mentioned it before, but you know, she has been relentlessly fighting this. I mean, we've been fighting this for, you know, a couple of years, but you have been fighting this for years and seen no justice. And so I'm very thankful that you're willing to come on and share your story with our listeners and viewers.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank the team, your team, all of you that have done this, that are working on this to expose this. These are horrific crimes that are affecting children and victims in society. So thank you very much.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you. So, yeah, let's. The floor is yours, Michelle.
Okay. Well, there's a picture of me when I was just going on 3 years old. This is right before the abuse started, but at that time frame, that's when my abuse, I remember that starting at that time frame. So at 3 years old, I was taken to the Masonic Temple up in Salt Lake City by a family member. And I don't know what kind of ritual, because I was only 3, but I believe now that I put things together, it was probably like Daughters of Job or Job's Daughters, whatever they call that. I was taken in a room. There was a lady who undressed me and put a robe on me, and also gave me some kind of purple medicine, medicine drug to make me feel kind of submissive or whatever. So after that, I was taken into a room where there was an altar. I was placed on the altar, and a group of men came in, and they were dressed in kind of Gothic type robes, or, you know, kind of symbolic robes of Masons, I guess you would say. They surrounded the altar, and they each went around individually and digitally raped me, and would take the body fluid and put it on the edge of a goblet, a golden goblet with some jewels all over it. And then they would pass it around from person to person and take turns and go around the circle. And they were saying some kind of chanting thing while they were doing that. It was painful, I remember. And I was scared. I didn't know what was going on. And I was in a room where I could look up, and there were stars, like the planetarium. So there was on the ceiling like stars, and there's a picture of that with a globe type look to it. And so I focused on that, and when they were finished with that, there was this lady that came in. She was dressed up like a queen, and she had a scepter in her hand, some roses, a robe. Her hair was kind of, back then it was old-fashioned. This happened in the 50s. So she had a crown on her head, and she came up to my right ear, and she leaned and whispered into my right ear, your new name is Maggie, Princess Maggie. And then she went over to my left ear, and she said, you will someday be Prince or Queen Margaret.
Weird.
Don't know what, but that came to me later on as a flashback. I heard that in my ears, and I remembered this experience. And so, yeah, the Masons, I guess, do this kind of ritual, or maybe they just did it to me. I have no clue, because there weren't other victims there. I was just the victim at that time.
Was this anyone you knew in the community?
No, I didn't know.
You didn't know. Yeah, the Masonic connection is obviously very interesting, and I think we're going to play. Let's play a short clip here that'll actually show some of the connections of the Masonic Lodge here in Utah, where it came from, and how it came to be.
Only a few blocks away from the Latter-day Saint Temple in downtown Salt Lake is this building, the Masonic Temple of Salt Lake. Masons are a kind of mysterious organization that not very many people know very much about. You probably only heard of them in movies like National Treasure. But the Masons are an organization that goes back centuries, at least as early as the 1300s, where we have the first records. A number of the founders of the United States, like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, were Masons. And it's a fraternal organization where men come to buildings like this, where they enter into ceremonies where they promise to assist each other, to help each other, and the motto of Masonry is to help make good men better. Latter-day Saints in the 1840s had suffered serious persecutions. Some of them were former Masons, and they felt like if they connected with the Masons, they might have some friends that could help them out if they got in trouble. And today, we've got the rare privilege of going inside the Masonic Temple, where we're going to film a tour and find out a little bit more about the Masonic fraternity.
You know, one of the things that people talk to me about is, well, Jason, the founding fathers were Masons. What does that mean? From my research, what I understand is that the Masonic order in Europe was absolutely very evil at its core, but a lot of the people who left and came to America kept things, and initially it was more pure until Albert Pike, who came, from what I understand, around the time of end of Joseph Smith, early Brigham Young, and he's the one that started introducing the darker ties to it. So it's a fascinating time in history, but clearly the Masons today, at least the higher levels, 33-degree Masons, are doing some very dark things. Now, let me ask you this, Michelle. You experienced some time in there as a child. Have you been back since then? Have you ever had a chance to get in there and take a look, and do you recognize anything?
Yeah, that's what I did. When I started having my memories come back, and some of them I had still as a child, but when more started coming back, I would go to these places, like Masonic Temple, to go and see if I recognized anything from childhood that I witnessed, that I saw. So I went back to the Masonic Temple when they had tours. Sometimes there was just somebody there and asked them if I could come through there, and they let me. And so I would walk through the building, and I would recognize this that's on the screen now. That was where they did the ritual.
That was the room.
That was the room,
when you looked
and
up,
they had the stage there. Yeah, and they had an altar where the green, where I guess the floor right there is, and then that's where they put me on the altar, and I would look
this
up.
altar right here.
Well, that's one that looks like it. That's
Okay.
not the exact altar. That's not the same room. But they have altars in a lot of the rooms because they worship with those altars in a lot of the rooms. So anyway, that's what I remember, is being put on an altar and then looking up. And when I went back to the Masonic Temple and I went through and I saw that, I just went, because you just gasp, because it's like so validating. Confirming, yeah.
Yeah. What did that do for you
Yeah.
when you walk in, when you realized that? I mean, how did that hit you?
Well, at first I was like in shock, and then I cry a lot. I mean, it's just like so validating that it's so real. And up front, I didn't want to believe any of this happened to me. Yeah. So I didn't want to believe it. And that's why I would go back, and that's why I've got so much evidence, because I went and worked on this and found out if these places were real, if the rooms and places were real. The people that I talked to validated things. We'll be going through that. But that's the most validating thing, is to go back and then talk to people and see the evidence really there.
Wow.
And it does, it kind of makes you sad too. It makes me sad, but it's very real. And then I was walking down the hallway, and I saw this picture that's up on the screen of the woman. And if it's not her, it's someone looked exactly like her, and she was dressed exactly like her, that did the ceremony that I explained, that came up and whispered in my ear that I was Princess Margaret, and someday I would be Queen, or Princess Maggie, and someday I would be Queen Margaret.
Wow.
So when I saw her picture, in fact, one of your team just showed that to me, I think last night, and I just gasped. I went, "Oh, that's her," because we were looking for pictures and couldn't find it. But yeah, that's who it is right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did walking through any of these places trigger more memories for you, or just confirm prior ones?
Sometimes they would trigger more memories. Yeah. Like they're on the stage area that's in that picture. I walked up on the stage, and they have these not statues, but board people They're half animal, half human, and they've got like hand holes in the portals of the plywood that they're made out of, like to put their hands in different positions and stuff. And so that kind of brought back some memories of stuff too. So
I'm so sorry.
yeah, but it does trigger, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there was a room. The reason I think this happened more than once was because there was a room, and that's in that other picture you showed me, or that was up there, where there were some stairs, an altar, and then there's some stairs on the side. Anyway, I went into that room, and I remember that there was a hidden room up the stairs, and I remember being kept in there. And so I thought, I don't know if this is true or not, but I walked up the stairs, and there had been holes poked in the wall, actually, and you could look in this little confined room. And I went out from the door, and there wasn't an entry. So it was a room where I remembered that.
Wow.
So like I said, yeah, you kind of remember things when you go in, and then when you find it and validate, it's like, wow, okay.
Wow. So, so your journey starts 3 years old with Masons. Any other experience with the Masons, or where it happened after that?
That's all I remember. There's the stairs right there, like in that one room.
Okay.
There were lots.
Fascinating.
They have a lot of different rooms in there, but some of the rooms would trigger me. I'd go, oh, I was in here. Or I was in
Wow.
here. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So then from 3 to 4, my father was in the Air Force, so I would travel around with him for the first 5 years of my life before they decided to settle down in Bluffdale so we could start school. So I could start school. And so somewhere in between 3 and 4 years old, I was in the Air Force Base in Texas with my parents, and I asked my dad later if we went into this certain hangar. And I said, I remember holding my mom and dad's hands, walking through this hangar, and then I was left at a room, and they said they had to go to a meeting. So I was left in a room in this hangar, and there were some people in there. There was a big computer board on the wall, like a lot of computers, lights and everything. That's all I could think that they were. I later validated that, found a picture that showed how the old-fashioned computers were on the walls. They used, the big computers, big type of thing. So anyway, I was taken in there, put on a table, and they put electrodes on my head. And like shock treatment
I hate
type
to do this.
stuff.
I hate to do this, but we did not do a trigger warning, and I want to please, to our listeners, I just want to make this before we move forward that we will be talking about things that definitely may be triggering, and please be aware of that as we move forward. I apologize for interrupting.
Yeah, and I'll try not to be too graphic, but
No, this is your story to share however you feel, okay?
okay. But yeah, so when these electrodes were on my head, it was like there was some kind of a shocking type treatment, and some words said, and that's all I remember about that experience. But I remember it affected me because later on in my life, I would feel hear these clicking sounds in my brain area, and I would always be like scratching my head, it was kind of like I wanted to get them off and stuff like that. So that was like a abreaction body memory of that. So I'm not sure what they did. I've heard of MK Ultra. I've heard of that kind of stuff.
It sounds like.
But like I said, I was only 3 to 4 years old, so whatever they did, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask you how many people were in the room, if you remember?
I remember probably about 3 or 4 that I saw before they put me on the table.
Were they just in normal military clothing?
Oh,
or?
the one that was doing the procedure was in a white coat, like a lab coat.
Yeah,
He
interesting.
was in a white
Interesting.
lab coat.
Yeah.
And the
Like
others were
bored
kind of, I think they were just kind of dressed regular. But
This definitely sounds like
Walking
MK
around.
Ultra.
yeah. So yeah, so I studied a little bit about that too, because every memory I've had, like I said, I've made sure I go back, find out if it really could have happened, how they did things, all of that, so that I knew that I wasn't totally crazy.
Oh, wow.
I'm a little crazy because of what happened to me.
Who's sane?
So yeah, so that was at 3 to 4. At 4 to 5, when we settled down in Bluffdale, that's when things started happening in the Bluffdale LDS church. It was an old church that used to sit right there up on a hill, and in the basement of that church, there was a boiler room and some rooms in there, and they blacked out the windows. So as you can see in the picture, that shows a little bit of it, and there's another one that shows how they blacked out the basement windows, and they were actually painted with black paint. So no one would really want to do that. Why? You need as much light as possible, right? So the only thing I can figure is because they didn't want anyone seeing what was going on down there. And so my first memories of that, like I said, I was about 4 to 5. They put, they had, when I say altars, sometimes these are like formal altars, like in the Masonic Temple, but or any other temple, but sometimes they just use like tables. But that was their altar, so I'm just calling it that. And so I was laid there, and they dumped a jar of bugs, spiders, and then snakes on me, and they told me that if I ever tell what they're doing, that they would bite me and kill me. So that was one of the threats that they made that I first remember. The other threat was I was told if I ever told anybody that they would kill my baby brother. Now, my baby brother was just born, and I was terrified, of course, of that. I wasn't going to tell anybody. They also, just so people know, I want to educate. This is one of the reasons I want to do this. I'm educating people. So you know about how they do what they say to children, and the reason why they don't tell. So this is what they told me. They said, if you ever tell your parents, they know that we are doing this with you, and they will tell us that you told them, and then we will kill you and them. So it's a double whammy, because we're taught this. They're teaching in the schools, like, if anyone ever touches you under your underwear, go tell your parents or a trusted adult. But in this, they say if you tell, they know that we're doing this, and if you tell them, they're going to tell us that you told, and then we're going to kill you and them. So there's no way a child is going to tell what's happening. So
can I ask a question? Who's they? And you don't need to give specifics, but is this people in your church? Is this people?
So these are people. Okay, so in the Bluffdale, I did know some of them in the Bluffdale LDS. This was a Bluffdale LDS church in the basement. So some of them were members, some of them were bishops, or I'll say a bishop and then a bishop to be, a former bishop, Lions Club members. They were community members and some leaders that were involved in that, and polygamists. So this is where the polygamists come into. So,
and this is multiple. This is not just one time. This is a.
Oh, okay, yeah. So these things happen like different times, multiple times. Okay, so in the Bluffdale Church, when we used to go to school in the Riverton area, Riverton Elementary, they would put everybody on the bus on Wednesday nights, and they would drop the children off at the church for primary after school. So primary was after school in the middle of the week. And so we would go there, be dropped off, and then we would have primary classes. And then parents would either come and pick up their children, or they'd be taken home. What happened with me is that I had a grandmother that lived close, grandmother, father that lived close. So sometimes we would walk over there and get treats and then go home. And so the only thing I figured out later about that was if my mom wondered where I was, she thought I was at my grandma's. If my grandma wondered where I was, she thought I'd gone home. It wasn't a planned thing. So they didn't know that this was going on. But this would happen after primary in the basement of this church. And we were taken down there. When I said we, there were other children also. And so...
In your ward or?
Yes, in the area community. Yeah, yeah, they were primary, at that time, primary children. So we were taken down in the basement. And like I said, that one of the things were the bugs. The other thing was they would do, like, again, digital rape type situations. There was always like a woman involved, and I remember a polygamous woman there that would clean up the children before they went home. They would always make sure that we were looking okay, everything was okay before we left. So that was how that happened.
How do you know it was a polygamist?
Because of the dress.
Oh, they were.
The ones involved in my group were like the prairie dress type.
Yeah.
You know, and we knew who they were.
Yeah.
We knew who they were, so yeah.
When you were in primary class, did they teach you guys, were they teaching you guys things, or were these rituals that you were experiencing?
Oh yeah, while we were in class, it was like regular normal primary class teaching us, we were singing songs, you know, my favorite song.
Do you remember them teaching you anything in the, like, saying it's primary class, but teaching you twisted doctrine?
No, not in that circumstance. Because here's the thing: not everyone is involved. Not everyone knew that this was going on. Not all of them that were involved. And the ladies, the ones that were my teachers, were really good people. And like I said, they would just go home after primary was over, and then they would get us some of the children downstairs.
Okay.
So they had to kind of know the routine. Probably, and probably some of the parents, I can't tell their stories, but probably some of the parents knew they were down there. I don't know. I can't speak for them, but.
So it would be like primary class happening above, and then in the basement they would take kids that were already being conditioned and groomed in these ceremonies and do those below it.
Yes.
Okay.
And they knew, and I'll go into this later, but I have talked to the girls, some of the girls that had this happen to them too, these rituals. And they've admitted they know, but they won't talk about it. They're too scared still to talk about it.
So they confirm the memories.
Oh, yeah. They confirm, yeah. I've talked to a couple of them that confirmed it. Well, 3 now that I can think of. Wow. A lot of my friends that were involved have committed suicide, or they're in mental institutions, or they don't function.
And I think it's important to just reiterate that Utah is the highest state in the country for child suicide under 18.
Right, and abuse from what I've heard.
Yeah, child abuse. Yeah, sexual
abuse. Yeah, yeah.
So this was so while you're living in Bluffdale, this stuff's happening in the bottom of the church. Not just you, but other kids in the community, by trusted community leaders, bishops, former bishops, respected people.
Right. And so that's what was awful, because these things would happen during the week, and then you'd go to church on Sunday, and I remember just sitting there, and I was scared of one of my bishops. And it was like, because, and it's like, but I knew I had to act like everything was okay too. So you're kind of living this life of like, okay, this has to be okay, but then it's not really okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, that messed up the kids for sure.
Right.
So was it ritual abuse? I mean, you talked about digital penetration.
Okay.
Was there?
Okay, yeah. So what, the other thing that happened is they would sacrifice kittens and goats. So sometimes they had kittens, goats, like that. And they would also use that as a tool to threaten us if you ever tell this is going to happen to you. But at the same time, they were doing rituals to sometimes God and sometimes Satan. Now, when I say that, I'm thinking there was a networking system going on where there were probably some blood atonement ideas, which that's the only thing I can think of, which have been practiced, and I'll go into the polygamists, some of them still practice this. When I say generally, I know everybody doesn't, but there's these pedophiles and perverts and all kind of, that they're inside of these organizations and they do this. So so when they would do this, like sometimes I think there were Satanists there, obviously, that we'd worship Satan. Some were, we have to kill, and I'll get into that, sacrifice to please God, to make amendments for what was going on. So as I grew up, this happened from ages 5 to 12. And so I'll just tell you some of the rituals.
Okay.
So along with, well, chronologically, let me go that way. But so I remember they had some pipes on the ceiling because it was in the basement. This was an old church. And so they would put ropes over the pipe. They would tie us, like hog tie us, after we had been undressed and put in some cages on the floor. And this is when we were really little. So we had to fit in these little cages, like mink cages or something like that. But they're probably a little bit bigger than that. But anyway, so then they would lower us. There were men that would lay on the tables. And we were lowered and had to do oral sex. And then, so we were raised and lowered that way as part of one of the rituals. But if you want to get into the satanic and the weird kind of rituals, well, they all were weird, but one of them was they did an open heart surgery, mock open heart surgery on me. And they laid me on the table and they told me that we are going to take out your heart and we're going to put the heart of Satan in you, and you are going to be Satan's child. You are going to be a child of hell. And so I figured out later, I felt the cut on me, and they had a knife. So they pulled out a knife and they made the cut like they were, but obviously didn't because I don't have any scars. But I'd heard later that they use ice sometimes because it gives the feeling, and then the ice is melting so it feels like the blood. So they scraped that down, and so I thought they were really cutting me. And then they pulled out this heart that was still pumping. Now, like I said, they used goats. So I believe that's what it was. And so they pulled that out, and they pretended to pull out my heart and put that one in. And then they showed me that heart again, same heart, of course. And they said, now we've put the heart of Satan in you, and you are one of us now, and you are a child of Satan. That was really awful.
Yeah, what did you do when you had that memory? I mean, how did you wrap your head around that?
I didn't. Because, okay, for one thing, they drugged us most of the times, and then I was also in shock. And you knew if you didn't do what they said, they were going to kill you. So you had to just be obedient to what they said. And then they would tell you you're special. So they'd say, you're chosen and you're special to do this. So it was very confusing, like I said. Another time, they had a baptismal. They had a horse trough that you put water in. And they took, they got blood from a goat that they had sacrificed, put it in there with water. And then they put me down and baptized me into the church of Satan. And they said, now you're one of us. But they held me under until I passed out. I had a near-death experience.
That's fracturing.
Where I went and I sat on Jesus' lap. And he comforted me. And I didn't want to come back. But I knew I had to come back. And so, anyway, and then they revived me, and they told me that now I was baptized in and belonged to them in the Church of Satan. And so that was very traumatic, yeah.
Do you remember who it was that revived you?
No, but I have a feeling. So this goes into the polygamous groups. So there was a leader, and he's passed away now. And I don't know if I should say his name, but he was also known. If he's passed away,
it's up to you.
Yeah, he's also known as a holistic type of a doctor. You know what I mean? He's been trained. So I believe that he was probably the one that did that.
Because oftentimes the person who revives you is a handler, and it forms this trauma bond with them.
Yeah.
And so that's why that question is important to me is because that whoever that was is probably someone significant.
Yeah, he was. He was in a lot of the rituals, rituals.
So he may have been.
Yeah.
Like you may have somewhat belonged to him.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about belonging. So another ritual they did was they married me to my bishop. Now,
Okay, I've
like
heard,
I said,
I've heard
have you heard
stories like
that?
this. Yeah, please share with our
Okay.
audience.
So I don't know, like, all I know is this person was there, and they did a ceremony and married me to it. And I, because of the pain of the sexual abuse, I dissociated, and I remember looking down from the ceiling and seeing the stairs of the church. So it seems like they also did a number of men also participated with that.
Do you remember how much of this? Because I had someone who was married to one of the 12 underneath the temple, and she shared her experience of being sealed to him. And I'm curious if there's parallels.
I haven't heard that story, but I just know that they have a ceremony where they marry you. And at the time I was 12, so they did that when I was 12. And what's interesting is
Were they dressed in ceremonial garb?
they were always dressed in some kind of like robe type. Yeah.
Was there a sacrifice associated with it as well? Do you remember?
I don't remember at that time if there was at that time, but they did at other. If it wasn't that time, I remember at other times where they did that. Like I said, they'd have goats. The one that was really terrible was that the polygamous, and this is to educate people, and they also do it with other women. But the polygamists are known; they don't have to record their births or deaths to the
Right.
state. So they're a secret society. The attorney generals told me that. That's what they're called. So they would have babies, and they would use these babies and children. And it was more of like a blood atonement. So if somebody in the family had done something wrong and wasn't being obedient to the doctrine or whatever they wanted them to do, they would have to sacrifice somebody as a blood atonement. So a lot of times they would use these babies, and it seems like some of them were early term. They weren't full term because they were very small. And they would put them on the altar, and then they would sacrifice them. And that was to God. That when they were doing that, that was to make up for what, that was their belief. It was horrible. And they, when I was 12, they made me do that, tried to make me do that, but they told me I had to go and do this like it was a priestess type of a ceremony or something. And then I would have to do that. And they put the knife in my hand, and I couldn't do it. And I just remember somebody came up behind me and took my hand with the dagger. And as they raised my hand and then lowered it, I passed out on the floor.
Oh, jeez.
And there were two of those. It seemed like they were twins. I don't know for sure. It was a boy and a girl. But that was one of that to me, I mean, that breaks my heart more than anything, than, any kind of abuse and all that. And, but I know they're okay now, but where they are. But what's interesting about that, and I'll tell you so I don't forget this part, I later, because that was on my mind, so I felt so guilty, so bad, even though, I was a child. But I went to the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office when I got older, in my 30s, and I was going to turn myself in.
Oh, wow.
I did. I went there to turn myself in. Because this is when no one was doing anything. I'd reported all these things to the police, and they weren't doing anything to investigate it, or not thoroughly, I'll put it that way. And so I went and turned myself in. I said, I'm here to turn myself in for the murder of these two babies. And he sat with me, and I was crying, breaking down, and he went and got a victim advocate, and he said, there's not going to be any arrests today. You were a child. They made you do that. And but he said, what's interesting is you coming in right now, we have two babies that fit the description of what happened And our detectives have found these 2 babies. Do you remember where they were buried? Now, I had a rough idea, and I said I can kind of see maybe where it happened, and that was somewhere in Bluffdale. But anyway, he said, let me go talk to them and come back while you talk to this victim advocate. So she helped me settle down. He came back and confirmed it. And he said, they are investigating 2 babies that fit the description in that time frame of what happened.
Wow.
Now, this is what's interesting, what happened to that guy. So I went back to get reports later of what happened a few years later. Found out he was retired early, let go, retired early. I got my reports, and they were there that I'd reported, but some stuff had been taken out, and the case was dismissed.
Oh, geez.
This is what angers me. So I found the name of this guy. Me and another victim called him up and happened to get his home phone number. And I called him up and I said, do you remember me? And he did. And he said, yeah, I remember you. And I said, can you tell me whatever came out of that case? Where are these 2 babies? Whatever happened? And he said, what are you calling me for? He got really mad. What are you calling me at home for? He said, I can't talk about that anymore. I'm not allowed to talk about it. You shouldn't be calling me at home. The whole thing. And I said, well, I just want to know. I'm sorry. I just wanted to know because I feel a responsibility. And what happened to the report? What happened to the babies? We still don't know what happened to the babies. And he got upset. And then I went, so that was the end of that. And, but he remembered me and he remembered the report and everything. And so I went later back to the department where I had reported this, and I hadn't even talked to them about this, and the receptionist got mad at me and said, why are you calling former police officers? They kind of know me.
Yeah.
And
you're not supposed to be stirring this
You're not
up.
supposed to be doing it.
You're not supposed to talk about this stuff. This doesn't happen.
Right. And so, anyway, got the chief of police to come out and said I was causing a ruckus. And I saw the video camera, up on the ceiling. So I thought, well, I won't get in trouble because I'm not causing a ruckus. But anyway, I was there to get a report. And so she looked at her and she looked at me and she says, give her what she wants, and walked out.
So you got the report.
So I got reports. So.
And we have that?
Yeah. Okay. So I have a lot of information if you ever want to see it.
Yes, we would love to see it.
I can show you those reports and things that I've gotten.
Yeah. We'll put that up on the screen.
Okay. So that was some of the rituals. They would do electrodes again on shock treatment, to inflict pain and to tell you not to tell, to threaten you. That was another thing. They did some chanting in Latin. They used some hypnosis.
All this still underneath the Bluffdale
This was in
Church.
Bluffdale, right. So this is on Bluffdale, I'm telling you. And then one time they put me on a wooden cross, and it was a lower cross, of course, just fit in the basement, but they tied my arms and legs to it and said, Jesus is not going to atone for your sins. You're going to have to pay the price for everything you do wrong. I think that's more from the Satanist group. There was a network, like they would do different things every time.
This is why you're so unique, because you were abused by several groups.
The only thing I can figure out is, like I said, these were pedophiles from different groups. And it was kind of like they were just doing these different experiments on the kids, on us. So it was like they were just doing different things or indoctrinating.
So what happened on the cross? What was that about?
That was, they just made me, it really was painful, and they just made me, be tied up there and just told me that I would have to pay for my own sins, that Jesus didn't pay for them. And it was more like just a torture thing.
Just abused you while you were on there?
Abuse and, yeah.
Sorry.
But, thank you. And then, so that was about it in the Bluffdale thing. that's what I remember. Those are the memories that I have in Bluffdale, the basement of that church. You know, sexual abuse, torture, sacrificial things going on. Now, there is a letter that was written. Okay, so later on, when I became a massage therapist, I was working in a chiropractic office. So the clients would come in and would work on them for about 15 minutes before they went to the chiropractor to get them loosened up. So this one-time client, and when I'm going to tell you this, you're not going to believe it because it is amazing. I am going to tell you, I have been divinely guided. Things have come to me unexpected that I would have never dreamt of, to validate all of this and to help me to validate it and warn people and help children, protect children, all of that. Well, anyway, so I'm working in this office. This client comes in, and I thought he looked familiar. Couldn't put it together. So I'm working on him, and we're talking, and I said, "You look familiar. Now, what's your name and who, where?" So he told me his name. He actually took my wedding photos years back. But there's another connection. He was also part of this stuff.
An abuser.
So
You're giving a massage to one of your abusers.
Yeah.
You put that together.
Yeah. As soon as I started, so he's laying face down. I'm working on his back.
Jeez.
And so we're talking. And when I found out who he was, and he knew who I was, he said, "Yeah, that's too bad about what happened in the basement of that church years ago, wasn't it?" And I froze. And I just froze. And I went, but then something said, "Don't act like you know what he's talking about." So I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean? What happened?" Because I wanted to get him to say. So he says that, the rituals in the basement, he said the name of the old bishop, took him down there and showed him the candles and the robes, the things that were down there. And I said, "Okay, so you know what happened down there?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Would you be willing to write me a letter about that?" And so he agreed to.
You're kidding me.
No, and we went to the bank and got it notarized.
Wow.
You're kidding me.
So that's that letter.
And this is what we're looking at right here.
That's the other one.
Wow.
Yeah. Is that it? Yeah, with the notary on the bottom.
Can we read that?
So John, okay. So,
River, do you want to read that?
yeah, it's.
Would you rather? Do you want me to?
No, I don't
River,
care.
go ahead.
It's this one right there. Okay. On the bottom.
And real quick, before I read this, just so I know, do you have memories of him abusing you specifically?
I have feelings, not specific, but I have feelings he was there because I'll tell you why. Because after he wrote this letter, or right before when he was going to write the letter, he said to me, "Maybe I'm supposed to do this so that this can make up for what we did."
Wow.
But that didn't I wish I would have had a recorder, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But
jeez.
he felt like he needed to write this letter for an atonement type thing, or whatever you call it. What do you call it?
Part of his penance.
Apology.
Yeah,
penance. That's the
repentance.
word, for part of his penance.
Wow.
Wow, that's heavy. Okay. So this is dated January 3rd, 2002. He writes, "Situation in Bluffdale Ward, approximately 1959 through 1960s, in the Bluffdale LDS basement. Meeting was intended for Bluffdale Lions under leadership of Redacted. The meeting intention was, as I recall, interrupted with a lighting of candles, and some of the group turned to a manner of dress, robes in parentheses, that supposedly fit the candle serenade. Not in accordance with the Lions meeting purpose. I was there representing the Lions district, but chose to leave as was not in accord with the action, not in accord with Lionism. That was wrong. To this day, I remember that we were not totally in keeping with the ideals in Lionism. This was more of a satanic stigma, or perhaps wrong manner of worship. As I recall, blank was present. Signed, Redacted, then Lion Redacted of the Directs Lion staff."
Wow.
So who he's saying there was over it and involved was one of the bishops. And so that's why when he said that, one of the reasons I said, because I'd had memories of that, of him knowing and being involved. So I wanted to get that in writing. So that's one of the main evidences I turned into the police.
And how did the police respond to this?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. The first thing, I checked with him to see if he had read it, and he couldn't find it.
Oh, of
It'd
course.
been taken off his desk or whatever. I said, okay, I'll get you another copy. So I brought him another copy. But I know, I mean, it's not funny, but it's pathetically ridiculous how much things go missing and you know, the reports aren't there.
Yeah, Provo Police Department's history of this.
Yeah. And this was Saratoga Springs. I reported to 5 agencies: Saratoga Springs, Bluffdale, Riverton, Salt Lake County, and Utah County about all of this over the years.
And every time
There's something that's missing or erased or dismissed, or they say we've done an investigation, can't find anything, come to later find out they just poked their head in a tunnel or something, which I'll tell you about. That's in the Riverton Elementary. But that's, yeah, they don't do anything. The only reason I can think is because they're either involved or they're scared they've been threatened too, so they're going to cover it up, or their reputation is at stake, like with family or even community or their city, their great city. They don't want that reputation.
Someone
There's
along the line up there is
there's
saying,
something along
we
the
don't
line.
touch this stuff.
Exactly. There's
this
somebody
has
along the
clearly
line.
been going on. I mean,
Right.
And this is why, your listeners, why we don't hear anything, why there's nothing in the police.
Right.
Why is it? Why? Because we have victims who go and you have a justice system and a legal system that is silencing and hiding and protecting the perpetrators.
Exactly. Yep.
Disgusting.
And or they're worried about lawsuits, or they're worried about the appearance, their reputations. Like I said, it's for all different kinds of reasons, and I can't say which one is which with everybody, but I can say the problem. Like you said,
this is why we do this, is because look, if this is we have brought it to the courts of men, and they have failed us, and now it is the courts of public opinion, and when we bring it to you guys to demand accountability.
Right.
And it's an appeal to the people and an appeal to heaven. I mean, that is where do you go when justice is gone?
Right. Yeah. So it's a real concern, and it's been going on from the beginning of time.
Yes.
Cain and Abel, Abraham, sacrificial things with children. I don't know why people don't believe this. I don't know why they don't want to do something about it or rise up. And I don't know. It is more prominent than people know of, and that's why I want to educate, like you guys are doing, educate everybody. But I don't know why it's so unbelievable.
Yeah, well,
it's right there in history.
Yeah.
It's been done. It's been
Throughout
done
time.
all through history.
Throughout time. So your story, and here's what's wild is this is not even. I mean, you have much more evidence.
Yeah.
So let's keep going. What else do you have?
Okay. So.
Hey guys, just a quick little message. I want to thank you for all of your support. This fight means the world to us. There is nothing more important, and there is no cost we will not pay to fight it. One of the things that allows us to fight, especially with the lawsuit, we do have to have funding, and we have partnered with Century H2O. We partner with them because I absolutely believe in what they do, and I believe it is necessary. We've talked about how toxic the water is in this state. There is a reason we have the health issues that we have in this state. The people struggling with gender, all these issues that are coming up right now with the low testosterone, what's in the water, the pharmaceuticals that are being found in the water. Century H2O filters all of that out, but leaves the minerals which are designed your body needs. If you don't have a water system, please look into it. Check it out. They have a whole house system, but they also have something for those of you who can't afford it, just simply an under the sink RO unit that is just a little over $300, especially when you use our code, We Are the People. If it's something you're interested in, please go to our website, wearethepeople.org, click on Wellness, and then scroll down. You'll see the options, and make sure you put in We Are the People for your 10% discount. This is how we're funding our fight, and also trying to make a difference at the same time. So thank you for all your support. Thank you for fighting with us. We believe in you. We believe this matters. There's nothing more important than the fight for freedom, and we're just thankful for everything all of you do to help us in the fight. God bless you, and we'll get back to the show.
One more thing that happened in Bluffdale
Yes.
was that the Ku Klux Klan that was involved, when I called one of the officers, chief of police, and reported Ku Klux Klan, I said, do you know if they're still around here? And this was in Riverton, by the way, but it's in Riverton and Bluffdale. He said, well, oh, yeah, they're alive and well.
What year is this when you made this call?
These are when I was in my 30s, so that's in the late 1990s.
So according to this police officer, the KKK is alive and well in Utah in the late 90s.
Oh, yeah, and they still are. So
Still.
one of my friends just talked to a former mayor of Riverton who told her that he was approached by the Ku Klux Klan and asked to be a member of it. And he didn't want to.
Unbelievable.
But they're yeah.
I think they're still here. I mean, didn't
Yeah.
they just do a big march in front of it was in Riverton. They had that big patriot group where all of those men in mass, they wouldn't even show their faces, went and marched.
Oh.
Like Proud Boy type of stuff. It's
I
you could
didn't
look
know
this
that.
up, yeah.
Okay.
It's still happening.
Well, I know it is because why are they going to quit? Nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
So I just remember they did stuff down there. Was a place called Hidden Valley in Bluffdale. There's little fields and stuff like that, and this is actually a hidden valley. It's down by the sand pits and the polygamous AUB convent, whatever it is, building. But anyway, they would do ceremonial things down in there, and there were other areas. And I talked to a friend later in life who told me that he saw a victim tied up to a tree, and they were sexually abusing her. So that was just another validation. And I just remember their robes that they have on. And I remember at 12, I had to go get my tonsils out. So they used ether back then. And I remember coming out of that ether, and I could see the symbol, that little symbol they have on their robes.
Mm-hmm.
And I found this out later. I didn't know what it was, but I would sit in school and I would draw that all the time when I was bored. I'd draw that symbol.
Really?
Yeah, and I didn't know why, but I saw that flashing before my eyes all the time. And ether's kind of a hallucinogenic thing, and so I was kind of in that relaxed state of mind, but I was having memories of that symbol. And so I checked that out, and I found out that was on their robes.
Fascinating.
And so that was later when I checked that out. And they practiced bestiality and all that kind of, it was awful stuff. So anyway.
For you to have that kind of memory of that symbol, I imagine it must have been more personal than just having seen it on a robe once or twice. Did you have any deeper memories or anything personal happen
with the KKK?
With the KKK?
Well, yeah, they sexually abused.
They abused you as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Good
I was
grief.
I was part of that because they were involved sometimes. Well, they would do their own separate thing, but like I said, I guess people would find out in the community what children were available or whatever. And
Michelle, someone was trafficking you.
Yeah.
You had
Right.
a handler trafficking you.
Right,
And you don't
right.
know who this was?
I have an idea. It could be one or two or three or four
Okay,
people.
yes, you clearly
Because
had
in
it
the community,
handled.
they
That's not
know-
just
they knew.
random.
Right.
And do you think your parents were aware of this?
No. Well, I asked them, I confronted them years later about it, and they said that they didn't know.
They just dropped you off in a
And-
military base in a room and
They thought
By
that I was being
yourself and
babysat in the.
by
they,
a guy
they
in a
told
white
them,
lab coat?
Well, no, they didn't see that part. They thought that was like the babysitting
Yeah.
area.
Yeah,
I guess. I mean, I'm not going to say because I don't know, honestly.
yeah.
But-
Just
Yeah,
bless your heart.
it's just that was one of the
And
awful things.
this is what we're fighting. I mean, this is modern day slavery.
Right.
Where she's got a handler or someone who is passing around from group to group, treating her
Right.
like a piece of meat.
Right. Yeah, and these men are just sick pedophiles, and they're also like, the women also involved in helping them, but they're probably threatened too. But anyway, the only thing I can think of is, I had a therapist once tell me they do it for power, profit, and pleasure. So you can put all those three together and see why. And they're sick, S&M, torturing children, all that kind of stuff, sexual pleasure, all kind of weird. And Satan has a lot to do with it too.
Absolutely.
It gives them power.
Absolutely.
So when people ask, I'm glad when people say, how can they do this? I'm glad you don't understand it, because that means you're a good person.
Yeah.
But anyway, so in the Riverton Elementary, this happened from 5 years old till I was 20. They would do these rituals after school and before or during programs. So holidays are very triggering. Yeah. Holidays, they would do not only because they're satanic rituals, but they would do these like when we were supposed to be at practice for an upcoming program. So the janitors had the keys. They were involved. They had secret little
Now we're moving
handshakes
to the school.
Oh, now we're to the school. Yeah, Riverton Elementary.
Okay, that's important.
Yeah,
The photo. Okay.
That one. Yeah, Riverton Elementary. It's now the current Riverton City offices.
And by the way, to our listeners, we are going to have a very real call to action for you at the end of this show. So please hang tight.
Okay, good. Yeah, please, because you won't. This is unbelievable.
This ties into real time.
Yeah.
This ties into real time.
Yeah. So just like in the basement of the church, Bluffdale, and there were other places around the valley. There's community buildings and all that. But anyway, we'll get to the Riverton Elementary. So they would do this for the school programs. They had a gym upstairs. So there's a gym, and here's a map of kind of the building. I don't know if it shows upstairs. Is that?
Now walk us through this.
Did she put that upstairs? Yeah, cafeteria. Do you see where the cafeteria is?
See that? Yep.
Okay, above that is the gym. And you go up those stairs, and then you turn around. They're kind of like winding stairs, but not really. You go up one, then there's a level, and then you go up the other, and then you go into the gym. So it's upstairs, so no one can see in.
Okay.
And so they would put, like I said, a table altar in there also, and they would do these ceremonial rituals. This involved polygamists, government leaders. There were some mayors there. There were some, and I'm talking about through the years. So there were also still some of these community members. Like I said, whoever wanted to come, whoever knew about the ceremony, the ritual, and wanted to be part of it.
Or was in these elite groups.
Yeah, it was in these groups. Right.
That are the underbelly that rules the state.
Exactly. So a lot of them, yeah. And a lot of them, even police were involved. Okay. So, I mean, there's just, you never know. I mean, we're given name or organization names, but it's just like whoever, wanted to be involved. So, again, they would do the rituals with the sacrificial rituals. In those rituals that I remember there, after there were, at the very end when I was older, there were 3 girls that were murdered from the polygamous group. And
how old were they, if you don't mind me asking?
I think they were 10.
Older.
10, yeah. Other times there were babies, infants, children. They were all, different ages. But when they would do these rituals, they would, after they sacrificed them, they would have kind of a sacramental, for those that know about that, I don't know what you call it, cannibalism type thing.
Yes.
And we would have to eat some of their organs and blood, drink some of the blood.
So the people participating and the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not, we hear that a lot.
Okay, yeah. And I said, like I said, it was gross. When I went to a therapist later, and he was trying to help me with my feelings, get in touch with my feelings, and from dissociation and everything, I would put my hands over my eyes, and he would try to get me to get my hands away from my eyes. And I couldn't do it, and I wanted to, and I figured that I did a lot of that during these rituals and things.
Sure.
Sometimes I would just hide my eyes. So besides the drugs and maybe hiding, I didn't see everything, but I did see enough, and I participated enough. Well, anyway, so yeah, so after they would do all of the sacrificial rituals, they did also sexual rituals, on the altar also. But there was a room downstairs that if you go to the right of where that, it's behind the cafeteria. Okay, there's some stairs that go down from the stage and gym area that go down there, and there is a shower room that used to be there. It was a junior high. It used to be a junior high. So there was a shower room and a door that would come from the outside, so the boys and girls or whoever's playing outside would come in from recess and shower in there. I guess I've just put that together. I don't know. But the shower room was right there behind the cafeteria, and let's see, to the west of it. Yeah, right in there. And so they would clean us off. They would also let the blood out of the victims, and then we would have to take them. Okay, then we would have to take the victims in gunny sacks down on the east side. There's another set of stairs, and there's a tunnel. There was a tunnel, and we would take them through the tunnel over into the boiler room. I don't think she's gotten that drawn on there. There was a tunnel that came off of the that's the boiler room. So there was a tunnel that would come off of the gym, would go downstairs, and in the downstairs part on the ground level, there was a tunnel that would go underneath. And so we would take these body parts through there to the boiler room, where also there were some rooms where the rituals were done. So it just depended on where they wanted to do them. If there's a big crowd, I guess, in the gym. If it wasn't bigger, they'd do it in these other smaller rooms in the boiler room. But we would take them through there. They would either burn them in the boiler room. Everybody just thought they were burning whatever, right? If anyone questioned anyone else outside. Or there was a tunnel, and you can see where that's drawn there. There was a tunnel that went from the boiler room and the depository. There used to be, that's some footings of an old church that used to be there, and it was torn down. So back then, these tunnels were for the transmission of heat through all these buildings from the boiler room. But now we were using them. They were having us take these body parts in and deposit them into that area. Okay, interesting part. I'll talk about this later. But human remains have been detected.
Really?
Yeah, and that's what we're going to get to.
Okay.
But anyway, that was one of the things we had to do, and that was horrible. We had somebody at the, well, I'll go into that later. Well, I better say it now so I won't forget. But some of the city officers there said that those tunnels were not big enough. A city attorney and building manager said those tunnels were not big enough for an adult, let alone a child, to fit through. Well, there's a picture of them right there. It had electric wiring through that tunnel. You can see the electric.
How did you get this picture?
I took it before they buried it. Me and a friend. See, I could be a detective or an investigator or a private investigator, whatever. But yeah, my passion is to find out, get the proof and evidence of all this. So we took this picture before they buried it, and you can see, I don't know if you can see clearly on there, but those black bricks in the back,
yeah,
that's blocking off the boiler room, and those are cinder blocks, and it's not like the rest of the building. And if you measure each one of those cinder blocks, the height, you know how big a cinder block is. Mm-hmm. There's 8 of them there. It's at least 5 feet.
8, yeah.
An adult could even fit through there, crouched over, and a child. So they tried, and also you can see on the floor there, I thought that could have been a gunny sack remains or something. I don't know. We couldn't get really down in there. I have a video also of us looking in there, if you want to see that.
Yeah.
Before they buried him, but from the upper level.
Yeah. We'll play the video, yep.
Oh, yeah, it's like a whole doorway. It's a doorway? Yeah, it's about as big as a door. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's walled up. Is it walled up? It's walled up.
But anyway, so that's the tunnel, one of the tunnels. And they're trying to tell us that, no, that's not big enough. First of all, they tried to deny there were any tunnels in there. I was told by the police there are no tunnels in there. And I had two of them follow me out after I made the report into the parking lot and ask me what my diagnosis was if I see a therapist. And I turned to him and I said, actually, that's personal and it's none of your business, but I'll tell you, if I'm a little bit crazy, it's because of what happened to me, not the other way around. I said, there are tunnels in the basement of that, in the bottom of that building. And they said, well, maybe there were when you were a child, but they're not there anymore. And I said, yes, they are, because I've recently been down there and taken pictures of them. I've got pictures of them. So that just ended the conversation.
Good for you.
But see, that's why now this is going into the walkthrough. Do you want me to go through that now?
Yeah.
Okay. So just 2 years. It's been 2 years now, 23. All this time I've been trying to report all of this. I have been reporting it. Okay, I need to tell you, I need to go back. So I need to tell you how this happened. So when I was in my 30s and I moved from, I was in Sandy. Oh, I didn't get to tell you that story either. You need to know this one.
Go ahead, tell it.
Okay.
Tell it. This is I promise you, everybody is very interested in your story.
Okay.
I feel free to.
I've gone. Okay, so chronologically, I ended up at 12, right?
Yeah.
In the Riverton.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a ritual done there where as you got older, then you were given the responsibility to help with the younger ones.
Right.
So I had to lead these younger girls up in robes up the stairs into this altar room in the gym. And I was also part of it. And we had to stand around the altar, and then the men came around in back of us. We had on these loose robes, nothing underneath. They would come around and they would take turns sodomizing us and going around the circle. Disgusting, awful. That was another ceremony I wanted to
And you recognize some of these men?
I knew him as a mayor. I knew him as some of the former community,
Okay.
yeah, and polygamous. They also did, like I said, some evil stuff, chanting, all kinds of like satanic stuff.
Yeah.
And like I said, it depended on different holiday and some of it was like the moons or the.
Yeah.
So there was, like I said, a mixture. I was very confused all the time. Like, are we worshiping God or are we worshiping Satan? And then they would do incantations.
Depends who they're selling you to.
Huh?
Depends which group they were selling you to.
Right.
For you.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then I remember as a child one time even trying to raise the piano bench just out of curiosity to see if I could do it. Because they had used these evil powers, and I know, and that was really dumb. But one time there was the kids in my class in 6th grade were doing a Ouija board in the closet and I went in and they said, come on, you need to do this. And I said, it just scared me. I said, no, I'm, getting away from this stuff. But just lots of weird stuff like that went on in that elementary.
I have a question for you
Okay.
really quick. When you're talking about raise a piano bench, do you mean with your mind?
Yeah, like in my hands, I was
Meditate.
like, oh, I've seen this. I'm going to see if I can do it.
You've seen this.
Yes.
I'd seen them do. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I had clarifying. Yeah.
Would you
I
mind
had
sharing some of the things you saw them do?
I remember just seeing like them doing all these with their hands, doing all this weird stuff and calling down powers and calling up things. And like I said, I think I covered my eyes a lot during that time.
I think it's important to talk about that what they're doing is going somewhere. Like they are sick people, they are pedophiles, they've been groomed to be abusers probably since they were kids in these roles. But the power that they're using and doing, it's all systematic for a reason. These ceremonies, these things that they're doing, it's to harvest power that they then use in different ways. I also saw weird
Exactly.
things like that. People
Okay.
floating. I mean,
Okay.
just weird paranormal superpowers,
stuff.
right? And
Yes.
but it's all going somewhere. There's a reason for what they're doing, you
Yes.
know. It's
Yeah.
very confusing when you're the one having it done to them, but it's for a specific reason.
You're right. It's to get that power.
Yeah.
And that feeling of, it's like, oh, you know, and you can feel the evil though too, but some of them really enjoy that, you know.
Yeah, well, they don't. It's power, right?
Yeah,
It's like your
power.
therapist said. It's power.
Right. And I remember one time let me think how that went. Well, I've just had some experiences like going back in the building since, and you can feel evil. You can feel, okay, and I'll tell you this experience. There's spirits there crying out for justice, for vengeance, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know, vengeance, but they're crying from the dust, okay? And they want people to know. We want, you know, God wants, like you said, people to know about this to help protect children. And so in that school, since I've been going back in there, and I've gone there several times and gone through these rooms, and I'll tell you about that first experience that I had. But when we've gone through the room, when I've gone through the school, you can feel this, and we've talked to people. There's people that have said they've had experiences with spirits there. They can hear women and children crying.
Oh, jeez.
These are the employees at that place, at the Riverton City now. And there was also a community band that said that they were walking down the hall once, and they saw these 3 little girls ahead of them running down the hall, and they thought, it's late, whose kids are these or whatever. And as they turned the corner, they were gone. I had a personal experience where when I went and told the mayor.
Is this the current mayor?
No, this was one mayor ago.
Okay.
I told him about what had happened, so he wanted me to go through the school with him, through the city with him, city building with him, and show him these rooms. So I did. He also took his secretary to go with us. So we walked through the building, and when I told him all the things that happened in these different places. And after that walk through with him, the secretary followed me down the stairs and whispered and said, "Michelle, can I talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah." And she comes up to me and she says, "I need to tell you something." She says, "I sit up in my office, and it has a glass window, and there's a bench across the hallway." And she says, "There's this man that comes to me all the time, and he's dressed like old-fashioned. He has coveralls and a hat." And she says, I said, "Oh, so he's kind of like from the olden days?" And she says, "Yeah, he dresses like that." But she says, I ask him, "Can I help you?" And he'll say, "I'm looking for my family." And then she'll look out and he's gone. And the same man comes over and over and over. And she says, "I've had some of these paranormal experiences in other cases, you know." And she goes, I said, "Yeah, it sounds like he's a spirit looking for his family." So I said, "Just next time, tell him to go to the light. Tell him to look for the light, and his family's over there."
Yeah.
So she did, and she calls me later. She got my phone number. She calls me later, and she goes, "He hasn't come back." So I thought, oh, good. I mean, that's just a side story, but I wanted to tell you how I would go to the, oh, by the way, after I went through that walkthrough with that mayor,
Yeah.
If you go down there now, the city, it used to be free roaming. You could go through all of the hallways and get to any office, anything. Now, after that, they've put glass partitions, doors in the hallways, upstairs, and you can't get to these areas that we've reported. They're locked, and only the employees can get through the doors.
No surprise.
I mean, it's a public building.
Yeah.
So that's just one little side note. But I wanted to tell you what happened that got me to go down to that elementary, that got me to go back into the school. I'd been down there a few times. One time I sat up in the auditorium. I looked down on that gym. There's an upstairs balcony. I looked down on that, and I just cried. And I called a former guy that I really nice guy that used to be in my 6th grade class. And I said, do you remember anything? Did you know anything happening? And he said, no, I hadn't heard of anything. He said, but I'm really sorry. Anyway, he was just somebody to console me. But what happened, and I had a crush on him besides. But anyway, so I would go down there a few times. I'd have these awful memories. And so when I was, like I said, in my 30s, I went down to the Bluffdale mayor, and I wanted to report to her what had happened in Bluffdale and Riverton and see if she would do anything about it. This is after I've tried to report it. I've reported it to all these people. No one's doing it. So I thought, okay, and this is funny, don't laugh, but I was once the queen of Bluffdale. So I thought that's my responsibility to help the people, the citizens there. So I wanted to do something for them. And so I asked her if she would listen to what I knew, and I explained it. She had her city manager come in and take notes. She said, I want him to come in and take notes. So he came in and took notes. He happened to have just left the Riverton city offices in the same position and come down to Bluffdale. So he had been working in Riverton city offices, former Riverton Elementary. He sat there and listened to what I was telling her. And I said, it not only happened here, it happened down in Riverton Elementary. And he goes, wow. He goes, this sounds familiar. And he says, there's another woman that's been there that has said the same thing that you're saying. And I was all excited because I had dreams, flashbacks of girls that I knew as children come to me, and every time I called them, they wouldn't talk about it, but they said that something had happened. But they wouldn't talk about it. But I was told spiritually, one day you will find somebody who will talk. So after he said that, I thought, here's somebody that's talking about it. So I immediately left the meeting, went down to Riverton city offices. He told me who to talk to. I talked to her, told her what had happened. She said, will you come through the building with me and show me the rooms and tell me what happened in each room? And I said, yeah. So I went with her through the building. Everything I told her happened. She said, that's what she said. That's what she said happened. I said, who is this? So she gave me her name. She was 10 years younger than me as a child. She was involved in it. Like I said, I didn't remember everybody. And so I go, okay, do you have her phone number? She gave me a phone number. It was disconnected. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get on Facebook. And I'm going to see if I can find her on Facebook and message her. I looked her up. I looked her up, but I didn't go by her married name. I thought I'm going to put in her maiden name. So I put in her maiden name, and she came up. And she told me later that a week or two before I messaged her, but that she felt like she should change her name back on Facebook to her maiden name. That's what I mean by divine intervention.
Yeah.
So
you connected to her.
I connected to her, and I said, I need to meet with you. There was things that happened to us as children that I need to talk to you about. That's all I said. So I gave her my phone number. She calls me. We decided to meet down in Bluffdale at a service station. I had a reoccurring nightmare all my life, from childhood to adulthood, that I was in a car, an old car, Chevy old car, silver Chevy, and my mom was driving, and I'm in the back seat, and it's a stormy night, thunder, lightning, and we're driving down this road in Bluffdale that goes around. It's called Under the Hill. So we're driving down that road. All of a sudden, there's lightning and a big clap of thunder. The door opens around one of the turns because it's a windy road. My back door opens. I fall out into the mud, and I'm buried under these tree roots. But before I fall out, I scream mom, but she can't hear me because of the thunder. And I'm trying to call my mom, and I fall. This is all symbolic, because I could never tell my mom. And then I fall in that and buried in the mud. Well, I knew that there were burials down under there. I remember this is where we also took people in burial, like those twins. People were sometimes taken to burial spots. So I knew that there was burials down there of remains of these victims. And so when I got in the truck with this victim and we went down there, I told her about my nightmare that I'd always had. And I said, there's burials here. And she says, Michelle, she goes, my sister told me that this is where they buried those 3 girls.
Wow.
That were murdered that I told you about.
Yeah.
Okay. So that started our journey of reporting I said, we need to report this. Will you report this with me? So we started at Saratoga Springs. We reported all the things that we had been through. A good detective at the time took it on. He said he would work on it for the rest of his life. But then he got removed, and another one took his place. And then he said he would, but then he hasn't continued. But he said that he would. That's what's sad. They get moved around a lot. That's another thing. They get moved, fired. And we'll tell you about that at the end, who's been fired. But so when I said we're going to go look for evidence, because all I'd ever been told by the police, we need evidence, we need evidence, we need evidence. So I thought, I'm going to go find evidence, because there's people buried in these areas. And I said, look under the tunnels. The one chief of police, all he ever did, according to the building manager in the Riverton Elementary, was poke his head in the tunnel. And he had his report, and she said he wrote, nothing's there. They didn't go into the tunnels. They never did. So down in Bluffdale, we're working, because Bluffdale's under Saratoga Springs now, when I'm reporting this. So we decide, I told this victim, we're going to go and try to find some evidence. So we would come up, and we literally worked in the trenches. We crawled through this ditch, to get to this area where these burials could be, because we didn't want a perpetrator lived down the field from them. And this was city property. We just didn't want him to. And I got permission, by the way, on all this property that I could go on it. And I would tell him, which was true, I had some childhood stuff that was buried. I just wanted to go see if it was still there.
Well said.
Didn't lie.
No,
Didn't lie.
And so, and it wasn't, what do you call it, build up or anything. So it was filled. So we crawled through there. I went to this place, and I had a feeling of, if I took this drum, this was crazy, I know, but if I took this little drum that had those ones that you can click and that has the things, that if I took that, I'd be able to find something. Something would happen, maybe. So I told her about it, and I said, you're going to think I'm crazy, but this is what I thought I should do. She says, no, I was told before that you were going to do something like that. So when we met, we go crawling down there, and what was interesting is as we get to this spot, nothing happened with what I had in my hand, but I heard in my ear drum sounds, like here, boom, 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 boom. And I said, it's here somewhere. So we had some little what do you call them? Yes. What do you call those?
Shovels?
Spades.
Oh, okay.
And I dug in. First dig, there was a bone. Now I know I still know that was a human bone, but of course, we turned it in, didn't hear anything. Stuff like that would happen. We would find bones. There was other areas on there in a field where, by the property, where there was actually bricks that were burnt. Underneath the bricks were bones. I called the police to come down at that one. And I said, look, here's these bones. I know they've got to be human. Some of them are also animal because we had to sacrifice to animals.
Right.
So be part of that. So I said, they're in there. And they took them in and they would tell us, well, you shouldn't be doing this. That could ruin the evidence because we're supposed to be the ones that do this.
Leave it to the professionals.
Yeah. And I said, well, are you guys, but they never would do it. We'd make these reports and they never would do anything. You know how it is. And they would never. So that's why we kept finding things and turning them in. But we were told by the forensic anthropologist uptown, I made friends with her and she says, yeah, this stuff happens all the time. She said, if you find something else, just bring it directly to me. So she was kind of knowing what was going on. But that was like, this was later. I keep going back and forth, but that's later.
I just have to say something. I found it like absolutely of course when you said you were a beauty queen. Because do you know how many beauty queens and pageant queens are like victims?
Do they?
Like
Really?
it is
Okay.
extremely high
No, I didn't.
percentage. Yeah. So when you said it, I'm like, yes, she
No
was
wonder.
a beauty queen.
Well,
Okay.
and it's interesting because they told you were going to be a queen.
Exactly.
You know,
Yes.
so isn't that an interesting
Yes.
You're right.
parallel to
You're
then
right.
I noticed that what I experienced in my abuse reflects in the conscious waking life that I'm living as just a normal human, not even knowing what I experienced, right?
Yeah.
And have you noticed that type of
Yeah,
themology
yeah.
and patterns in your...
Yeah, there's patterns.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, no wonder. Wait a minute. Did
Yeah.
that connect? Yeah.
So this is triggering something. This feels deeper,
Uh-huh.
right?
Oh, yeah, and I was a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
I didn't want to run. I didn't want to do it. But
Who
that's
made
kinda
you?
me. Well, my mom she wanted us to be the Osmonds. We were,
Pushed you.
and the Von Trapp family singers and whatever we could be.
Yes.
But anyway, so yeah, but so through that was the last, these girls that were sacrificed, that was my last memory of that, because that was in my 18 to 20, I think 20, yeah, that happened. There was also one more I just remembered I got to tell you about in Bluffdale. There was a greenhouse, and you can see it now. It's still there, unless after I tell you they're going to tear it down. Because every time I reported something, by the way, something's been renovated, torn down, there's been a city park or a parking lot built on top of the evidence. So it happens
There's
every
a lot
time.
at stake for these people.
Yeah,
There's a lot at stake. I mean, this is the power structure that this state is built upon.
right,
They're not going to let this stuff just get unearthed,
right.
literally.
Yep. So I went, okay, so there's this house, and we called it the greenhouse because it was green, painted green. There was a perpetrator there. The friend that I grew up with, I went to look for her. She's one I had a dream about, and I went to look her up, and she was gone. She's in a mental institution up in Canada, and no one can reach her. They won't let anyone reach her. And I told her relatives at the time what had happened, and they said, I don't doubt that at all from what they had heard. So that was just another validation. But we had a friend, me and a victim, had a friend go through there and film the house. There was a downstairs, as we remembered, and there was also 2 garages that went under the house into this basement area, with the door into the basement area. These were large garages, like 2 of them. So a multiple number of cars could fit under there. So it's kind of like hidden. The rituals done down there were pornographic filming, child porn. By the way, I just have to share this. They have since painted the house white, but you can still see some of the green, because I reported at the greenhouse. Anyway, I later on went to a support group in my 30s, ritual survivor support group, and there was a guy there that came up to me, and he had tears in his eyes, and he said, Michelle, I'm so sorry what I did to you.
Another one.
This is a male victim. And I immediately kind of felt what he was saying, and he said, I remember holding you on the stairs because you were crying. And he was a little older than me. And he says, we knew what we had to do, go down there and do it. And I said, you don't have to worry. I know it wasn't your fault. You know that you were made to do this. And so, but that was another real validation of that greenhouse, of what happened there. This guy doesn't even live in Bluffdale. So, oh, and he's got a letter I can give to you. I don't know if, did you get that letter? I thought I sent it to you. Okay. I've got his letter of validation that he remembers being with me there.
We'll put it up on the screen.
Okay. So that was just another one that happened. But he remembers we were drugged, and he remembers like peanut butter sandwich or bread with peanut butter, and they'd put this white stuff on it. Probably, who knows, cocaine? I don't know.
Is what they were giving to the kids?
They would drug us. They would drug us and then make us do these porn acts.
Probably more like ecstasy,
and they were filming it.
MDMA.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even know because I was a child. I don't even know, but that's a memory, and he validated it like years later. So that was another one.
So they had you producing in the films.
Oh yeah, they had us performing with other children in the films, child porn, and they did too. The perpetrators
would rape and sodomize.
But he was sorry because he was forced to do that with me, and so I said, "You don't have to worry. I there's nothing to be forgiven." Like he was, but that was sad because he was. Anyway, he was in that support group, so I met him later. So like I said, they were doing the holidays, ritual moon, depending on what it was. And then, so that was up until I was 20. Then when I was 21, I went on an LDS mission.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Now, yeah, that's the perfect reaction because I was like, I felt I was supposed to go. I've always been active in the church, and I felt I had a confirmation I was supposed to do that. So I did that on my own will. But what happened?
So I just have to make a statement.
Okay.
So from the neighborhood, kids in school, by day you're active LDS, very, very, probably dress modestly, do all these things, follow the word of wisdom. And by night, you're being trafficked through organization after organization after organization from the time you're 3 till the time you're 18 years old.
Right.
Jeez.
And so it's very.
See, this is people don't know what's right beneath their own nose.
No, right. And the reason why, like, I don't know if you've heard of dissociation.
Yes, of course.
But the reason it's a gift. It's a way of coping, but it's not fun. I mean, but it's the only way you can handle it. Your mind can handle it.
Yeah.
So you're like. Just, yeah.
Two separate people.
Yeah, or more.
On purpose.
Or more, yeah, literally.
I was going to say, there's
probably,
more.
In your case, multiple parts.
Yes. Yeah, found out that, yeah.
I know people are threatened not to get out, threatened with, obviously suicide programming. There's all sorts of programming to scare people from coming out. Did you see any of that? Some examples of that? Like threatening people to not come out or
threatening the people that were
threatening, yeah. Like, so did you see examples of these groups threatening people, or I mean, you've used some examples, but share the example with our audience with the 3 girls and their family.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. So the family, the father was murdered, the mother was also murdered.
Why? And tell us how that all went down.
Okay, from what I heard, understood, and knew about how they did things, it's because they were not being obedient to their religious beliefs. These were polygamous.
Okay.
So that was a blood atonement type ritual. So because they were probably all agreeing, they were all in one agreement, they all believed that, or they weren't doing something the way they wanted it to be done, they murdered the whole family.
But it sounds like they did it in a very specific, methodical way. Is that correct?
one was at Christmas, one was after the girls were after the Christmas one, and then one was Halloween. Oh, how can I forget that one? Halloween. Yeah, Halloween. And I remember going down, this is like part of the dissociation. I remember going down that year to the Riverton Elementary, to Riverton, and I'm going, I don't know why I'm doing this. Because I was usually home like with the trick-or-treaters or at the door with the trick-or-treaters or going out trick-or-treating. But no, I got in the car and I went down there. And I remember, okay, there was a report that came out after that there was somebody that was a trick-or-treater that was decapitated. And that was the story that I don't know if that's the story they used, if that's what we were told to say, if anyone asked. It's just strange. That's what I said.
But bottom line is there was a whole family murdered, and the way they did it is they murdered them on different special days.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So instead of doing all at once, it was the father and mother the father on one specific special day, the mother on another special day, and then the kids on another special day.
Right. In that
rituals.
situation. Right. In that particular situation. I don't remember other things happening with other families like that. But with that one,
family.
Yeah, with that one.
And when you say they weren't following like their covenants and stuff, do you mean like because they wanted to stop doing rituals? Perhaps like they were trying to leave the cult?
I'm thinking some of that happened. Yeah. Yeah, because if you ever tried to leave, you were threatened, and they would tell you, like they told us, we will always know where you are. We will always know what you're doing. And back then we had those party lines. So we were worried, like, I was always worried, like, people were knowing, like, listening to me talk.
On the phone calls.
And so I couldn't ever say anything. I had a real problem with phones during that time. And I was worried about that. And they said, and then later on, when I lived in South Jordan as an adult, one day I go downstairs and there's two dead, frozen, this was in the winter, but 2 frozen cats hanging from the window well that had these horrific looks on their face like they'd been tortured, hanging there. So they'll do little things like that to make you kind of scared so you won't tell.
Yeah.
Or remind you that they're watching you, that they know where you are, they know what's going on. So that happened. Do
you remember which particular polygamous group you were dealing with? Because there's several different groups,
okay,
like
yes,
the Warrens.
okay.
And
so, so I vaguely remember Warren Jeffs. We're around the same age. His father, Rulon Jeffs, was a leader in this. Now, everyone knows, or pretty much everyone knows the story about Warren Jeffs, why he's in prison, putting the girl on the altar. And this all was passed down. This is Warren Jeffs just copying what he...
So FLDS?
FLDS was part of it. If there were some FLDS members, because back in my day, the groups were all still one. They started breaking off.
Yeah.
So there was FLDS at that time.
And what is this we're looking at here? This is inside an FLDS temple.
That's the one that Warren Jeffs...
Zion Ranch.
That's the one that Warren Jeffs sexually abused the girl on.
And these are the beds that were
he
inside
had
there.
He had them built that altar to his size.
That's where he would rape his child brides.
Yeah, that one that he's in, at least the one that he's in prison for.
And this is him
and there's
with
multiple others.
the 12-year-old. That's disgusting.
Yeah, and so there were
plastic covered matches. That's fucking sick.
Yeah, and he would have women. If you read it's in the public record about how he did that and everything, and with women standing around and having him witness that, and then pleasing each other and all that kind of stuff. He was just sick. He was a sick man. He is a sick man. But anyway, that's just one example. So if people don't, that's another thing I couldn't believe. If people don't believe the current news about this, I don't understand that. That it goes on, and it's gone on for years. He just...
In our minds, the police, even the President of the United States, had no authority over us. Warren Jeffs is our president. He was the prophet. And how could you place a human over God?
Known as FLDS. It's a far offshoot of the Mormon Church and supports the practice of polygamy.
The more wives, the more children you have, the higher in heaven you'll be.
When you're taught something from birth, from your mother and your father, you believe them because they're your parents.
It was for our salvation. You did whatever it took, even if it was wrong. One day, my name was brought up and I was to be married. I was 14.
Warren Jeffs took over this religion and turned it into money and power and sex.
Young girls were like a commodity owned by the church.
Warren had himself 78 wives. 24 of those wives were underage.
We're going to go after the criminals, and we're going to go after the child abusers.
To stand up against a multi-million-dollar church, you're going up against a lifetime of conditioning and fear.
He took their families away, took their homes away. Might as well have just lined them up against the wall and shot them.
You don't fight the priesthood, you don't fight the prophet. But it was so much bigger than just Warren and me.
It happens to everybody eventually. You will come around and see the light.
We love you.
I love all of you.
And go, what the f***?
Sweet spirit of prayer.
Utah has a real problem with cults.
Belief.
There are so many cults in this state. And I think, and I'm just going to, and I know people don't want to hear this, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it because we have a problem with these cults and they're all over. We are a state that is conditioned for cult mentality. And I am very concerned because as this stuff comes out, as people see the corruption in the church, and if there is a fracturing, we have to get out of this cult mentality, which is we need to follow somebody. And the problem is, and people used to tell me all the time when I was Jason, you remember that your church is a cult. And it's like, you guys are freaking ridiculous. You don't know what a cult is. You know, Catholic Church cult. You know what? The Catholic Church is a cult. Like churches are great vehicles to create cults. MAGA is a cult. Sorry, MAGA. When you can't question your leader, okay, when every time your leader does something that makes no sense, it's 5D chess, or whenever something from your church leader is something, it's there's always a reason, and we never question and we cannot question. That is cult, and we are wired and conditioned to follow somebody. We need to follow a white suit and tie. We need to follow. No, I'm sorry, folks. You know what? Follow the Savior Jesus Christ,
right?
Because the arm of flesh is fallible. And yes, God has placed prophets on the earth. That is a part of his plan. And there are inspired men. But when we don't question, when we just are going to blindly trust because that person of authority carries our salvation somehow, and we're just going to... Utah has a massive problem with cults. And it stems from us being conditioned in this state to blindly follow and not use our own thinking. And again, MAGA, the left is a cult. When you just, anything that comes out of the left, you're going to blindly obey. And the other side, you're going to push away. As a nation, we are being pushed into cult mentality, and they're very dangerous. And we just have to, it needs to be said. It needs to be said. We have to be careful of this stuff.
Right. Because, like you said, it's not that a certain organization is totally bad,
right?
Or or you can't take every organization and say, well, this is bad. Because what happens is there's pedophiles, perpetrators inside of them that are doing this. But like you said, if that perpetrator is a leader and you think you should just follow the leader.
If the adversary infiltrates the Catholic Church, and the Pope is responsible for your salvation, and the Pope can lead you down any road, and the Pope can do no wrong, that is a very dangerous road to be on. And that's, I don't care what church you are, or what political party, if you are setting yourself up to follow a leader who in your mind can do no wrong, and you will blindly turn away from anything that seems wrong, and it's 5D chess, or it's always an excuse. To me, that's dangerous. Like, God gave us minds for a reason. He gave us personal revelation for a reason. He gave us the light of Christ for a reason. And I think people need to be more focused on this and less focused on, okay, now I'm not going to follow that guy. Now let's quickly follow this guy because I don't have my own compass.
Right. That's right. Exactly right.
Sorry for the rant.
Well, no. Thank you.
I just see this. I see this, and it just infuriates me.
Well, I know. Well, I can quote you something, paraphrasing, but Joseph Smith once said, if we're talking to the LDS community, is he said, he says he only expected people to believe him when he spoke as a prophet, but as a man, he said, if I'm speaking as a man, you don't need to believe what I say, but when I speak as a prophet. In other words, the exact thing you're saying is mankind is fallible. They can make mistakes. And he admitted there were many things he put publicly that he did wrong, and that the Lord told him he was doing wrong. And so he said that if he speaks as a prophet, then it's expected. In other words, if it's from the Lord, like you're saying, to follow.
Right.
But
if someone gets up there and says, this jab is a literal godsend, and it's clearly your soul says that's a dangerous thing, I'm not taking it, and you have sheep who said, well, since he said it, forget my own revelation, forget this connection, I'm just going to follow.
Right.
That's cult.
Right.
And we're not supposed to be that way.
No.
We're supposed to be independent individuals with personal revelation, with a personal relationship with God. And yes, I know there are good men who know more than I do, but I'm not going to let them think for me and not use my own brain, because this right here, when you have this happening, Warren Jeffs, that type of abuse.
Right. That's right.
I think
they still follow him. They're still thinking he's
God,
receiving
prophet.
inspiration and doing, when he's telling them, I mean, I've studied, he's doing all kinds of things, telling us. There's a friend I know that is afraid, and you've heard this probably in the news, the one that's afraid for her children's lives, because he's calling them back to tell them to get ready for the second coming, and that they need to, they're worried it's going to be another Jonestown or something. And because of that, like you said, that cult mentality and stuff.
Yeah. Go ahead, River.
One thing that I want to say, too, on top of what you're saying is, yes, Utah has a massive issue with cults, but this is what makes survivors feel so crazy, is you went to these places, you saw these altars, you went and gathered all this information, you have the facts, but there is a wall, there is some sort of disassociation that the general public does when you bring this knowledge to them. And we're like, we have all of this evidence. So not only is it, if you're in a cult, we are in a cult. We are in some sort of mass level of pervasiveness of allowing our leaders, the men in power, the women in power that have had people come out against them saying that they've been survivors of sexual abuse from them. Our president, Jeffrey Epstein, how everyone has been bought and paid for because they themselves are a predator and they have blackmail on them. And we just continue to elect these people. Sorry to get loud, but it's why we feel crazy, because not only did we experience on the surface crazy things, but we have proof. And you take it to people and they say, there's just a layer of numbness there. And we need you. Yes, you need to have a connection with your higher source, whatever that is for you, but you need to have a mirror in front of your face too. You need to ask yourself, why do I not care about these things? Why am I not showing up to these rallies? Why am I not angry about this? Why do I refuse to talk about it? Because it's something that's in us. It's something that they've done from the very beginning. If you look at little boys' clothes, they have images of perpetrating animals, bears, lions, tigers. You look at little girls' clothes, they have, butterflies, horses, like these like it is ingrained so deeply into our subconscious for women to be prey, men to be predators, and we point, it's to keep the elite people from being held responsible because they're the ones that are creating this system.
Well said.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to get that
No,
out.
thank you.
It's crazy.
Love the
It's
fire.
really
Love the
crazy.
Well,
love,
and
love
I'm
the
glad
fire.
you used the word crazy, because I feel, and a lot that I've talked to victims and survivors, and like you guys, it feels like we're living in this crazy world. Like everyone's asleep, or a lot of people.
Yes.
People need to wake up.
Yes.
I will tell you this.
I don't know.
Do you know what's pretty awesome though? People are waking up.
Yeah.
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 And I'll tell you, I've been shocked at. I was terrified at releasing some of the shows we've released, and this is so real time where we are actually filming today. We just released the show with an unknown survivor who we protect her identity about being abused by Monson, and I was terrified of releasing that. Terrified of and to see the way these are. It's the incredible support we're getting in this state and out of state. People are waking up, and I think God. You talked about the blood crying from the ground. I think God has heard and seen and weeps for all of these children, these families, these individuals and I believe He is pricking people's heart, and people are finding and saying enough's enough. So I want to just thank our audience, because our audience are incredible people who are seeing that. Just the masses, though.
Right.
Need to see more. So anyways, go on with your story.
When I went on my mission, before I went, I had the doctor appointment where they see how if you're physically, mentally okay. I remember sitting there thinking, I know something's wrong in my brain. There's something that I felt that I didn't know if I could do the job, because I felt like there was something, but I didn't have all of the memories. I didn't have all those back till later. On my mission, I had flashbacks. I had flashback of men surrounding me and groping me, sexually groping me. I also had my jaw and throat close up, locked jaw and throat close up, so I couldn't speak. I had no idea what was going on at that time. I just knew that I was going through some horrible memories, some horrible things, like, why is this happening? So I almost got sent home. I went into the office. The mission president came, and the zone leader and district leader came and gave me a blessing at that time, and they decided to put me in the office. So I was sitting in the office this one day, and the health missionaries were assigned to me. So I would sit there and do things in the office, mostly read scriptures and got through the whole Bible. But anyway, and then and Book of Mormon. But anyway, then I would go home with them. But one day I was sitting there, and Charles, I don't know if you know him, but Elder Charles Didier, he was the area president over that mission at the time. He poked his head around the door, and he says, "You must be Sister Nielsen." And I go, "Yeah." And then he went in and talked to the mission president. The mission president called me in and said they wanted to send me home. It was devastating. I didn't want to go home, even though I wasn't feeling well. I was having these traumatic flashbacks and sickness. But my mission president said he had prayed about it, and he said, "I know you're supposed to stay, because if I sent you home, you'd always feel like a failure." Well, he was right. So I stayed. But that was an experience where I kept having flashbacks off and on throughout my mission. And then when like I said, I looked these things up when I got home later, then it all made sense. But I was having problems there. That was what happened on my mission. But I struggled through, got through there, went back to BYU. I'd gone to BYU before the mission, went back. I always felt dirty, so I'd shower a lot. I mean, there was just all these things. I'm just telling you things that would come up, body memories. And then I attracted these kind of abusive men or they had been abused or something. And then I had children that I would find that had been abused. So all of these things kind of a theme, like you're saying, like that thing you're saying, it kind of this pattern starts going in your life where all these things start happening. And then I got married, and things were okay, I thought then, but turns out it wasn't, because now I'm divorced. We were married for 13 years. I had 4 kids. During that time, I was very nurturing to my children, very overprotective. I tried to do everything I could to have fun on holidays, but it was very hard for me, and I would get sick a lot on holidays. And So I remember doing that. I remember holding, rocking my baby one time, and the news came on, and it was talking about children that were abused, and then other kidnappings. Whenever that would come on, I would just sit there and cry and hold them really close, and I would cry. And later I thought, why did I do that? But now I know, because I was relating what had happened to me, and I wanted to protect my child, and I felt so bad for all those other children. So that happened through those years.
I mean, there's patterns with this type of abuse that often don't just end. Handlers that don't just disappear.
Yeah. There was some stuff that happened, but not all the time, but there was some stuff. But
yeah. Well, we'll leave it at that. But.
Yeah. And so and then I went to my home. Let's see, we moved after the divorce. I went to another place. I moved about 5 times in 8 years. I can't remember, almost every year. But yeah, that was okay. Then when I moved to West Valley after the divorce. I moved to West Valley after the divorce. That's when I started having flashbacks of what happened in the basement of the Bluffdale Church. And there were 2 bishops that I was told to call spiritually. So I shook and I didn't want to do it. I hesitated, but I called them finally. And the first one said, I didn't tell him who I was. I didn't want to tell him who I was. He said, "This is Michelle Nilsson, isn't it?" Because I told him that I had had some bad stuff. He was my former bishop, and I'd had some bad stuff happen when I was growing up in the Bluffdale Church.
He was one of the abusers?
He knew about it.
He was one of the abusers? Mm-hmm. You are courageous.
And, I was shaking. It was really bad, but I kept ignoring the prompting, but I knew I had to do it. Finally, I did it. And he said, I know that I was told by a former bishop to be aware of things that happened in the basement of the church. Now, that's that other letter. So.
And this is, you got him to write a letter.
I got him to write a letter.
Jeez.
So do you want to read that again?
Yeah.
The top
read
one.
It for us.
Yeah.
I just think, go ahead.
September 30th, 2003. To whom this may concern, I am blank blank. I was the bishop of Bluffdale Ward from 1965 to 1969. When I was called to be the bishop, the previous bishop, redacted, informed me that there had been things done in the old meeting house that I should be aware. The old meeting house was a school at one time. The school was remodeled and made into a church. There was a couple rooms in the basement that was dark and had no windows. I do not know what happened, who was involved. I was just told to be aware of these things. I feel bad that Michelle Nilsson has had some bad memories in this building. If something can be done to help her forget what did happen, I feel she should be helped. Sincerely yours, redacted.
The thing that hits me there is
much, but
the thing that hits me there is I hope she can forget.
That's what I was like. That feels like threatening. That feels threatening, right?
It was. I hope she can forget. If something can be done to get her to forget, like, hey, I better forget.
Yeah.
Well, there are things that they can do to help you forget. I mean, this is normal. This is what they do, right?
Yeah.
And this is.
And then
traumatize.
Right. And then later on, I had a former bishop later and a current bishop call him. And I've got the notes of that conversation. And he admitted that there were immoral acts that had gone on down in that basement. And so I got a copy of that too. And so in that, what happened right before I called those bishops is, then the other one I called. Okay, this was really amazing. When I called him, he also guessed who I was. I didn't tell him my names, and he guessed who I was. And he said, there are things that a bishop has to keep to himself and take to his, or there's things that bishop has to keep to himself that he can never talk about. And he says, I will take what I know to my grave.
Yes, that's what you do with secret combinations.
Exactly. So I said, I don't need to know. I know the bishop's response. I said, I don't want to know names. I don't have to know names. If someone's come in and confessed or whatever, I said, I just want to know what you know happened. So I said, I'm having awful nightmares, awful flashbacks. I need to know that these things are something that happened that you know about. And he repeated that, and he says, there are things I cannot say that.
I mean, it's awfully good of you. I would be naming all their names.
Well, I knew that he wouldn't tell me, so
well, I would be naming names. You know of these people. You know these bishops. You know them. I mean,
yeah. But see, later on, because I was afraid after I had talked to them because of all the threats and everything, I wrote a letter to them and the police, and I said, I just want you to know that I have reported that this stuff happened, and if anything ever happens to me and my family, they will know to come in and investigate you.
And so will the thousands of people who are watching this now.
Yeah. So, so that right there was that was just another validation, and they knew, and I was prompted to call them, and so that happened. And I had right before that I was asleep. I was taking a nap, and I was always tired through school and everything, falling asleep in classes because I was up all the time at night doing this, right? So I'm always falling asleep. But then in West Valley, before I called these bishops, I had a flashback, and I saw the boiler room in the basement of that church, Bluffdale Church, and the fire, and that's where it happened. I woke up out of a dead sleep, like, that's where it happened. So then I was told to call. So anyway, that's how I remembered that was a flashback. So some of the who I've reported to, I've reported to bishops, I've reported to stake presidents. I've had sanctions put against me on some of those, and they've always apologized to me after they were released, saying they had to do what they were told. Now this comes from Curtin and McConkie.
Do tell.
I have. Oh yeah. Okay. So.
Kirk and McConkie is the church's law firm that silences many, many victims.
Oh yeah. So I don't know why I did this, but I had heard about a lawsuit of some victims in the Boy Scouts. So I knew that there were things, that they'd gotten settlements for. Now, the reason I did this, I wasn't doing very well. I was not functioning very well, especially after these flashbacks were coming back. The divorce, I had 4 little kids that were 4, 6, 8, and 10 when it happened. And I had to take care of them all by myself because my ex-husband went to California, back to California. I was taking care of them, and I wasn't getting child support and alimony after that for a while. So I was really hurting. So I thought, who can help me? I need some help. I need some financial help. Oh, because, by the way, I had talked to the bishops when I had these flashbacks when I moved. Now, this is when I moved to Magna. The first bishop believed me because I didn't tell him what had happened. I just moved there, and I told him that I needed a blessing because I was struggling. I didn't want to tell him. I was too scared because I didn't know what bishops were involved or whatnot, right? So he gave me this blessing, and 3 different times in that blessing, he told me that I had been the victim of many cruel and terrible things of the last days.
Wow.
3 different times, and I hadn't told him anything.
Wow.
So I decided I could confide in him. So when I told him what had happened, he believed me, and he really wanted to help me.
Good for him.
And he had studied, and he cried with me.
And I think it's important to highlight that there are some very good bishops, stake presidents. There are some very phenomenal, men and women in the church, inspired.
Yeah, there are, and I know about the others too. So I know both. That's why I'm saying I know both. But so he helped me, but he wasn't only in there for a short time. And then some others got in, and they were either kind of more apathetic or they kind of were upset at me for talking about it. Because at that time is when I became a massage therapist. I was working on a client. He was a lawyer. I was telling him what happened. And he said, "Have you heard of the Glenn Pace memo?" Now, I know you've talked about that. And I said, "No, I hadn't heard of it." So he said, "You need to read it." And so I read it, and I was like, oh my word, this is what happened to me. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to me. I mean, it was so incredible. I love Glenn Pace because another leader that believed it and wanted to do something about it. So I actually talked to his secretary, and he would relay messages back and forth to me, and he was praying for me and all the victims. Anyway, he was a good guy. And so that was just another validation. And so I started telling people in my ward and community, you got to read the Glenn Pace memo. And I was trying to get it all known and made, and I was telling my bishops and stake president knew it. And so, sorry, I'm laughing because it's so sad. And I sometimes laugh when things are sad, sorry. But anyway, so they told me not to do it anymore. Do not talk about this. I was trying to be silenced. So I was released from some of my callings, and I asked my bishop, why is this going on? I'm not given another calling. I had a few callings, and he said, okay, I shouldn't tell you this, but he says, your name is on a file, red tagged.
The Strengthening Members Committee.
Yes, okay, right. And so, exactly. And so I was made to look like a bad guy when I'm the victim, and this is kind of the anger and the upset frustration that I get is because why would they re-victimize somebody that had already been victimized? So I had to go, it was very hard, very difficult. Temple recommend held this whole thing like.
Oh, they held your temple recommend.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, for a while, that wasn't even long, but the callings, yeah, I was released. And then later the bishop told me that he had to do that. And then when they got released, they would all apologize to me.
So what was the message
now,
they were trying to send you?
The message, this was Trent and McConkey doing this. Because I'll tell you what, I don't know how many people know this. They have a helpline. LDS Social Services has a helpline. So the bishops are told to call if there's somebody that comes in and says something, really drastic or something, so they need help. But guess who's on the other line? Found out Trent and McConkey. One of the attorneys are on the other line listening in. So they're, of course, going to do anything they can to protect the church, which that's fine. But if a victim's telling something that happened and they need help,
it's not fine.
They should be helped.
We
right?
support individuals and victims, not institutions over the victims.
Right.
That is immoral, it is wrong, it is evil.
Right.
It is better
exactly.
than millstone hung around their neck and drown in the depths of the sea than offend one of these little ones, let alone rape, sodomize, abuse, and torture.
Yes, I agree. And so it's, again, they want to protect the reputation, which I told them, I've been very bold with all of them, and I told them, you are making yourself look worse by not helping the victims.
Yeah, not if no one knows, though.
Huh?
Not if they can silence you.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the goal.
Well, that was the goal. So later on, I met with another stake president who had talked to Trent and McConkey, and I asked him if he had talked to him, and he was upset. He said, how did you know? And I said, because I know how it works. And he started to tell me that I couldn't, talk about this stuff. So I told him, I said, I'm going to tell you something. He said, you try to silence me. I said, that's witness tampering and obstruction of justice.
Ooh.
And you could be called into court at some point, and you could be in trouble for silencing me. I will never stop talking about this.
Wow.
I will always try to protect children and educate people on what's going on. And it doesn't matter who did it. If whoever has done this, it needs to be brought to justice and the truth come out. So I said, I'm never going to do that.
Wow.
So then they had me talk to another stake president, and they were going to hold a court on me. And he brought up all these scriptures, and I said, you've been talking to Trent McConkey too? And he said, yes. And I said, okay.
That's sick. That is sick that they brought up scriptures.
Well, I know, but guess what?
You.
I don't know why, but I was helped divinely again, and I just quoted back scripture back to him. And I said, I am doing what the prophet Joseph Smith told me to do. I am reporting injustices and things in dark places, and that read him to Doctrine and Covenants. And the Book of Mormon, I said, this is secret combinations, and if we don't, any of the people that uphold them, it's going to be the destruction of our nation, of people. And I said, so I am doing what I'm supposed to do. Well, anyway, after that, he said, well, we were going to have a church court on you, but because of how you said things, we're not going to. Now, I know I was divinely helped, and then he called me after, and he said, I'm not supposed to talk to you, but I'm talking to you as a friend. And he says, maybe it would be good for you to not talk about this to the bishops and stake presidents anymore. And I said, I will never stop talking about this because it needs to be brought out. Wow. So like I said, there's some people just trying, like you said, they're trying to follow what's right, but they're confused, or they're not doing the right thing because they want to be in line with things, or I don't know if it's status or popularity, I don't know, but it's just wrong. Like you said, it's not. The victims are suffering, and the children are being perpetrated on because people won't wake up and look at what's going on. So that's what happened there.
I want to get, because we are out of time.
Oh, okay.
And we have to get to Trent Staggs.
Oh, yes. Okay, so that was the next thing. Okay, sorry. Okay, let me get that, because I want to follow the right notes.
Michelle, you're amazing.
I'm sorry. I have
You're
other
amazing.
stories to tell, but I won't.
I know.
Okay.
I know we're short on time, but obviously there's a very real-time issue that we need the people's help with. Tell us about the video and what's happening right now that we need people to speak up about.
Okay. So, like I said, I had reported I've been to the city meetings, council meetings. I went to the Riverton city, is it called council meetings? I can't think of the name. Yeah.
And this is real time. This is Trent Staggs, who is a friend of mine. He's been on our show many times.
Okay. So I went there and I got up when they allow the public to get up and speak. And I said, when are you going to have the police investigate the human remains that are in the basement of this building?
Wow.
And he just kind of looks at me and he says,
who's he?
Trent Staggs.
Okay.
And he said, well, I will talk to our police department and have them contact you. And, told me to leave my number and that kind of thing. And I said, okay. And so there was a chief of police at that time that contacted me. He was fired. Then they got another one in there, a real good one, that he contacted me, and I told him we need to go on a tour of the building because I'm not being believed by the police that there are tunnels here and that there's remains, there's evidence of that. So he arranged for his detective and him to take me through the building, and I took a victim advocate and another victim with me. And so we went through that building. He had on his body cam and went through the building, and I explained, like I have here, what happened in each of those rooms, showed him the rooms. We went through the whole thing. We got down to the basement, the boiler room, and they had seen the tunnels by then. They didn't know the city has on the outside of the door storage, and they said, well, this is just a storage room. And I go, no, you open the door, and they had keys and stuff. And I said, you can go down the stairs, and there's the boiler room and the tunnels. Well, they opened the door and shocked to see that there were stairs. We went down and we went through those rooms. I told them some of the things that happened. I said, there's tunnels. One of them has been walled off. You can see where it's been cemented. Then we went back to where this picture is in this room where there's another tunnel, and there's a wooden ladder leaning up against it. And you can see there's candle wax drippings on the top of the old wooden ladder and on the side of the wall over there. Probably can't see that too well, but there are. So the detective said, oh, look, there's candle wax like they use in the rituals.
Oh, wow.
He said that. Okay. These guys are good guys.
Yeah.
And the chief of police said, okay, we're opening up the case. We're opening up a case. So that's what, when they saw that and the other places that I'd shown them, and they saw that there were tunnels and the stuff I told them, they believed me, and so they were going to open up the case. So they did, and they investigated it. Like I said, I think I said this before, the city and the attorney had the tunnels buried over with the guys that they're going to make a outdoor, what do you call that? Stage, pavilion, there's a pavilion. Amphitheater, thanks. That was their plans. Every time I've reported stuff, every time they have covered it up. These people, anywhere I've reported, they've done stuff to where they've built over it, remodeled it. So anyway, while he was gone, the detective was gone on a training or something, they buried the tunnels.
Jeez.
That's that tunnel, obstruction of justice.
Yes.
I mean, someone's got to do something about this, because I asked for the grandma report, and I kicked myself because I should have had the other victim recording this the whole time, so I wouldn't have to depend on them. But I just thought I could get a copy of that report.
You should have known better by now.
Yeah, I should have. I know. I could kick myself. So I called the attorney, city attorney, and this was a new one, by the way, and so I was kind of happy about that, because I knew the other one didn't like, what I was doing. But I told him that the police department had given him the jurisdiction. He had to go through the report and make sure there wasn't anything in there that needed to be redacted. So they gave that responsibility to him to go through it. So I called him, and he said, well, were you there? He says, oh, you were there during the walkthrough? And I said, yeah. He says, well, there should be no problem. I don't know all the laws, but I'm going to find him out. I'm finding him out. If someone is there, the victim is actually there and goes through, they're entitled. That's their story.
Yes.
They're entitled to that walkthrough. So he said, I have to, and I've got this recorded. He said, I have to protect the city, but he says, I also need to help you. And so he said, I see no problem in you getting this total unredacted version of the walkthrough. He said, the only thing that they said, the city, is that there could be some surveillance issues. And he said, I said, well, what does that mean? He said, well, maybe there's some cameras in the building they don't want people to know about or see or whatever. And I said, okay, it's just all excuses and reasons for me not to have it, because I've got the recording and I've got some of it that's redacted. It's heavily redacted. They have covered up that part of the whole conversation. There's no cameras down there. There's nothing. There's no reason, in other words, that this should be highly redacted.
Okay, so we are live right now. Like, this is a current situation. What are you asking the city for?
Okay, I want the unredacted total version of my walkthrough with the police.
Okay, and Trent Staggs has the ability to authorize that?
Yes.
Okay.
He's over that. And so currently we have sent him a letter.
Yes.
It was supposed to be answered yesterday. It hasn't been answered within 10 days. So now we are going to go to the committee.
No. Now we are going to have a call to action to you. Okay? Everyone says, what can I do? What can I do? I consider Trent Staggs a friend. I helped him in his run for Senate. Helped him quite a bit. Trent's probably watching this. Trent, I appreciate everything you do. Trent, we, the people, are going to come and ask you to provide this unredacted video. Is video correct?
And audio.
And audio and whatever she needs to get to the bottom of this. Trent, I know you care about this stuff. This is a very real concern to us. I think this woman who has been trafficked her entire childhood, teenage life, been and has fought for justice and been denied at every turn. I believe she's found someone who will stand, and I'm asking each of you to kindly write, call, show up, Maybe we can have a vigil and we can show up at this and request this help for Michelle. I'm tired of this. I am tired of the David Levitts and the David Hamblins and all of these perpetrators running free, not any justice. I'm asking you, each of you as listeners, to stand up and get involved. And I'm asking Trent, I know you're wanting to run again, and next year it's campaign season. This would be a great thing to do. This is a concern to all of us. This is real. We know this is happening in our backyard. I believe Michelle. I believe her from the bottom of my heart. We are being sued because we know this stuff is real. We would like your help. And so to each of you out there who are watching, I'm going to ask you, one, put this beautiful woman in your prayers, along with, River, another incredible survivor. And here's where we're going to wrap this up because we're running way behind. This has been going on for generations. Dragons, when you leave them alone, they don't get smaller. They get bigger. This dragon, if we dealt with it in the 80s and the 90s, when Glenn Pace came out and talked about it, and when it was starting to infest the church and infest society, when this young woman was being passed around from group to group and abused in most horrific ways, we could have stopped it if we would have brought it into the open and demanded justice and listened to these survivors. But because we have not listened to them in the 80s and 90s, and we decided to put a lid on it and call it the Satanic Panic, it has now gone to the generation of River. Now the next generation is being abused. At what point are we, the people, men and women, and men who should have backbones, going to stand up and say enough? This is not something happening in some far distant land. This is your backyard. We are doing everything we can to bring this to your attention, to show you this is real. I don't know how anyone can sit through what we did today and not say that this is not happening. And I'm going to ask you to stand and fight. Fight with the pen. Show up. If we organize something, you volunteer, because we will show up at Riverton with as many people as possible, and we will let these representatives know that we are not going to go away. So, it's time to stand. It's time to fight. Yes.
Yes. Right. Agree. Amen. When I first reported this years ago to the officer, the detective, or chief of police, we went to get an official report so we could report this. When I'm talking about I talk about the other victim and I, about what had happened in that school that's now the Riverton City offices. I asked him, he got upset, didn't want to give us the right paperwork. The detective at the time didn't want to give us the right paperwork. This was years ago. So I asked him, I said, can I just ask you one question? Are we the only two that have reported this happening in this building? And he said, no, there have been several. It's not just me. It's not just another victim. No. It's several children, which I know some of them, were abused. One of them, my friend, has passed away. She got really sick. Anyway, there are victims that need help. There are victims that need help, whether it's reparations, whether it's support, whether it's stop calling us crazy, whatever it is, they need help. And the children need to be protected. Like River, that makes me cry. Like this, like you said, this should have been taken care of, and it's a long time ago. And they don't believe us, and they call us crazy. And for whatever reason, they want to keep it covered up.
Yeah. Well, we know, obviously, why they want to keep it covered up.
Well,
the elite are protecting themselves. Before we wrap up, River, I want you to give your final thoughts.
I feel like everything that has needed to be said has been said. I just want to say thank you to you. I don't think I could ever put into words. Like, I'm not even 30 yet. I'm 29. I'm almost 30. But to see you, I know a fraction of the struggle, right? I know a fraction. And here I am. This is your kind of in a way your final act, right? This is my launching point. And I so hope that you will be able to put this down because everybody else picks it up. And I hope you are able to see justice. I believe you will be able to see justice. I believe I will see justice. And I think that this is all going to change. I don't think we would be sitting here doing this and bearing our souls and going into trauma states if this wasn't going to change. We have already won because we have the mics. People are listening. People are showing up. But I just can't express how amazed and inspired and grateful I am for you because you walked a path that I don't know if I could have. And you are so strong and determined, and my soul sees your soul and the work that you've done, and I'm so, so grateful for the foundation you've laid for people like me and younger generations to be able to actually hold these people accountable and stop them.
Thanks, River.
Of course. I'm so grateful for you.
You too. I'm grateful for you.
Thank you, River. You have a choice. You can take the easy way out and say, well, I don't know if there's anything here, and this is, there's cognitive dissonance, and turn. I'm sure the majority of people will do that because that's human nature. You can say, you know what, I believe these people and I feel bad, but what can I do, and shrug it off and do nothing. Or you can let this prick your heart, and you can ask yourself, why did God send me to earth, and do I have a role to play, or am I meant to sit on the sidelines? This is the battle of good and evil. It doesn't get any more real than this. This is literally God and Satan. This is literally the heart of the battle. I do not believe you were sent to earth to this time to sit on the sideline while it is raging and victims of being horrifically abused, and you know about it, to sit on the sidelines. And the final choice you have is to stand and fight, to stand and make a difference, to leave a legacy, go to the other side knowing that you came to the great showdown and you stood and you held your ground and you made a difference and you fought the dragon. We've given you some ways to do that, and you have a very real opportunity today to call up. We'll put the phone number to Trent Staggs' office. We'll put his email address down below. We'll put it on the screen. We'll organize a day, and we'll put that down in the notes where we'll all show up. But in the end, it's not what we thought about while we were here on earth. It's not what we listened to. It's not what we believed. It's what we did. It's what we stood for, and it's what we stood against. And I know you guys will do it. I believe in you. So I know you will stand with us, and I look forward to seeing you guys standing and fighting with these beautiful warrior women, these warrior queens. And thank you guys for being that, and God bless you guys.
Most filters only strip out contaminants, and they do it poorly. Sentry removes toxins at a deeper level and adds back minerals. 75% of customers feel the difference in just 2 weeks. Install your Sentry Wellness System in just 30 minutes and enjoy water that fuels your life. Learn more at sentryh2o.com.